Hello and welcome to another episode of How Much D&D is Too Much D&D. Clearly a question that I don't know the answer to because I have another fun and funky fresh group of a-holes to bestow on you. And because I've had a stressful week of events and talking to people, I'm exhausted, so enough of an intro, let's get straight into talking about these little beasties. First up is Io, my character. She's not going first because she's mine or anything like that, mostly because, as per the title of this drawing file, this was going to be a single character video, and then I thought, you know what, there's only 3 of them, so why not draw them all? Io, named like the moon of Jupiter, is a changeling that tends to take on more feminine forms. She's 6'2", and this is exclusively for Moo Stardreams, one of my subscribers, and their tall D&D character, a Kalashtar by the name of Lulda, who I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Besides her height, Io has very few unusual features for changelings, being the very typical pale, silvery white blank slate. The vibes of Io I'm really excited to delve into. I've not yet decided on a voice for her, which I think is okay for now. I feel like a changeling of any character is more likely to not be dedicated to a single voice, but not only that, she's a little bit off her rocker. She's motivated by events that she is sure have happened and she is sure will happen, but fails to have any information on what exactly those events are. For example, her background is Fey-lost. She firmly believes that she was snatched from her home and spent most of her life growing up in the Feywild where she didn't belong, and she uses that as an excuse to cover up any social faux pas she may have committed. Also as an excuse for any actual crimes she may have committed. On top of that, her motivations are to find the ideal specimen and support them with her powers so that both them and her can become incredibly powerful in preparation for the event. No, she does not know what the event is, even if she will talk about it frequently, and also no, she has no sane measurement for what the ideal specimen is, which is why her party is made of a turtle and a goblin, who you will see later. Resulting from these driving emotions, I was looking to give her a very specific expression, and it's an expression that I stole exactly from cosplayer Princess Sachiko, but also vaguely reminiscent of Knife Cat. You saw it earlier, but I struggled a little bit with deciding what clothing she should wear, and I had to draw a couple of versions of outfits. My 2 goals were A, give them a monocle because not enough femme fantasy characters are out here wearing monocles, and B, give them a relatively gender neutral outfit with a lot of adjustability. Io has an extremely loose shirt with a sort of vest waistcoat and these pants with lots of buttons that I imagine have these sort of like expanding flaps on the inside that fold out just in case they are portraying someone of a different size. The most impractical thing of this outfit was the thigh-high boots, but come on, they look really cool. Now, you may have heard me say earlier, support at some point, and now you're all coming after me like, Lady Splitchin, are you playing a cleric again? No, I am not. No. Although I am still playing a support role, and it is still primarily a caster role, and the class does have access to some of the cleric spell list, but it's different, I promise. This time, I'm actually sort of playtesting a class that our DM found on the D&D Wiki homebrew page, and I'll talk briefly about it, but there's a decent amount going on there, and if any of you love playing a creative support role and you have a DM that is willing to work with you and you're also willing to manually manage your spells and points and whatnot, because this class obviously is not a part of D&D Beyond. And just to clarify, while I like having paper and writing the stats and stuff down, I'm not a paper elitist, I'm just incredibly cheap. And as someone who has used both paper character sheets as well as D&D Beyond, managing difficult classes and spells and stuff is a lot easier digitally. But anyways, if your DM is okay with it and you're interested in playing this class after I talk about it, I'm definitely putting a link in the description to the D&D wiki page. This homebrew class is called the Synergist, and beware, I'm about to say synergist and synergy like 30 times, so don't stand in any dark rooms in front of a mirrors, or else you may or may not accidentally summon like a 50-some-year-old business admin guy who has never worked in food service. Anyways, the Synergist class is honestly a massive game of Bless and Bane. Your strengths lie in creatively using your spells to either buff your allies or debuff your enemies. And to be honest, even out of combat, a lot of spells available to the Synergist class are going to make for some pretty cool creative problem solving. The Synergist is a charisma spellcaster, and as they level up, they get various Synergist features which can be cast using Synergist points, which are a lot like sorcerer points. The Synergist feature that I'm taking at first level is called Mass Blessings. This means any spell that has a range of self, touch, touch or a single target, I can expand into a 30-foot aura, which is an aura that I can expand by expending more synergy points. There are other features that more directly affect dice rolls, with either adding or subtracting a d4 from attack rolls, checks, and saves, or just straight up using a synergy point to give advantage to another player. One of my favorite aspects of the Synergist is that at 8th level, they get an ability called Multi-Bless, which means I can maintain multiple spells that require concentration, with a cap, of course, on how many spells are up at once. That changes with your spellcasting modifier, and so long as I can pass a gradually increasing concentration check with each additional concentration spell that I add. And that's just stuff that you get as you level up, regardless of the subclass that you choose. Now, I would go into deeper detail for the subclasses, but I think I'm going to spend some time playing the class first and then update you guys on how that goes. And maybe in another video, I'll delve into synergists and subclasses if you're all interested in hearing specifics, or if you want like a quick rundown and that helps you understand how to play the class yourself. I understand that. And if you don't want to wait for me to make a video on how a synergist is going for me, you can just check out the link in the description. And also, we're well into drawing our next character in the lineup, so let's move on to this big old turtle boy. This is our party tank. He's clearly and obviously a turtle, but he's also an artificer. I will be referring to him as he, or Mr. Turtle, because as of this moment, he does not actually have a name. My husband specifically requested that I ask you guys for name suggestions, or if you like any of the names he came up with. Terrence has been the placeholder because it's got good alliteration, Terrence the Turtle, but there was also a moment where he was going to name him Leonardo after the Ninja Turtle, and of course, for you League of Legends fans out there, Rammus is a very strong name contender. But again, he asked specifically for your suggestions, and even if he doesn't use any of them, I'm going to steal them and put them in my name bank for my NPCs, because waste not, want not, am I right? Anyways, here is our 5-foot tall turtle artificer. As I said, the party tank, but with Mage Hand. I actually specifically chose not to take Mage Hand early game because I know how much my husband loves using Mage Hand. It's his favorite spell, cantrip or not, in the entire collection of D&D, which is not to say that I won't be taking Mage Hand at some point for myself, because the only thing better than one Mage Hand causing problems on purpose is 2 Mage Hands causing problems on purpose. Now, this may come across as news to you all, but I have never dressed a turtle, and this is the first turtle I have ever drawn. This turtle's ambitions are essentially body modifications, attaching metal plates to his own shell for upgrade purposes. And knowing my husband and the way that he absolutely would create a prehensile tail for himself if he could, because he wants nothing more than an additional appendage with which to hold things, and also knowing that he has enough engineering expertise to come up with some kind of crazy contraption that will probably straight up turn this turtle into either Blastoise or a Koopa Paratroopa, I'm prepared to make progression drawings of this turtle as he becomes the Doc Ock of the D&D world. So we start off at level 1 nice and simple with a few ring attachments, a couple of metal plates, and I had a couple of drafts and ideas that I sent to my husband that we were eventually able to consolidate into one clear idea. So these plates attached to his back with various pieces of chains and leather, and he has this backpack which has been finagled with all these buckles, and he's got a set of tools at his hip and vials on his arm for quick access. I also gave him a chatelaine, and I know that's historically a woman's accessory because a lack of pockets is a problem that spans centuries, but look at this man, he has no pants. And also, everyone should have a chatelaine if they want to, they're cool, and also I think they make the coolest cosplay emergency kits. This character took the longest out of all of them. It was all just a combination of realizing that I have very little idea on how a turtle actually works anatomically, and then trying to mitigate that turtle anatomy with a bipedal creature, and then also my own personal artistic creative liberties, and then on top of that having to dress him, and not dress him in like pants and a shirt and big swaths of fabric, but instead dressing him in little bits of chain and scraps of cloth and thread and leather and buckles everywhere you could possibly want. And in addition to these little bits, I also added some graying moss growing on his shell. And with all these details, he felt both underdressed and over decorated while I was working on him. But my husband was very happy with him. Unlike my last group D&D video where I didn't bother with the centaur behinds because they would get covered up by other characters, I did actually go through the trouble of rendering all the little extra chains and buckles that would eventually end up getting covered up by Io in the group picture, because I did want to be able to send an individual picture of each of the players and also give the DM solo pictures to make tokens for Roll20 from. Not sponsored. Now, the DM hasn't really given us a ton of details on the campaign just yet. We've just had session 0 and next week will be our very first in-game session, and basically we were told which D&D canons were and weren't suitable for the campaign, which was pretty much exclusively the plasmoid D&D race, and we were told to come up with one goal for our character, with only the knowledge that our characters would have something like no memory upon arriving to the world, which is why when I talked about Io's Phalos background, it's all what she personally believes and not necessarily a true event. Also, quickly before the next character, I think adding the little glass goggle eye patch thing was my favorite decision and really completed the look for the turtle. Last but not least, we have the classic Chaos Gremlin Goblin Rogue, but tall. This is Stub, played by Volkmar from my previous Drawing My D&D Party video. The player had pretty much exclusively played tanks, and particularly a lot of paladins, and really wanted the opportunity to try something else out for once. And unlike me, who had just picked an adjacent support spellcaster role, he went all the way into Rogue. I had the thought that if the player chooses to go Arcane Trickster, we could have 3 mage hands causing problems on purpose, which could either be the best thing in the world or the worst thing in the world. Although, honestly, I don't know what subclass this guy is going to end up picking. I just want everyone to have a really good time. The description I was given for Stub was that he's 4.5 feet tall with greenish skin and red hair that is tied back into a ponytail, with red eyes and a scar on his lip. Actually, to be honest, I completely forgot about the red eyes and scar and had to add them in quickly at the end, but I do eventually remember. I struggled a lot with clothes because both the turtle and Stub are greenish brownish characters, and I felt like that made Io just look even more awkwardly out of place, which is technically fine, but is kind of pain for an artist who likes composition balance. I really liked the pirate coat idea, but it made Stub look like a little colonial boy, and it was not vibing. I settled on this very street urchin rogue look with a tattered hood and sort of tan sleeveless shirt with dark pants and boots. To fancy him up a little, I gave him some wraps around his hand and arm and gave the shirt some cool patterning and added a tie around his waist. Even if he is a chaos gremlin goblin with an urchin aesthetic, it doesn't mean he can't accessorize. And the rest of the drawing is just me fixing in the details. This drawing took me the shortest amount of time because there is nothing I love more than drawing a spry, sticky-handed goblin fellow. Part of it is just the way that goblin anatomy is already so bouncy, almost comical in my head. I get to sketch my traditional anatomy, but get to make it more dynamic without feeling bad about it, because for some reason, in my head, human anatomy says no flexibility, but goblin anatomy, despite being pretty much humanoid, can be stretchy. And then also, I just love drawing the ears and big toothy grins. It just brings a lot of life to the character. And with those last bits, here we have our trio. Look at them! They're so... well, cute might not be the right word, but I'm super excited to get to play with this group. We've got our dexterity, we've got our strength, we've got our charisma, and that's it. I'm just really excited to play a crazy person with high charisma, someone who's crazy but also knows how to pretend to be a normal person when needed, but chooses to continue life as themselves being crazy, and I'm so excited to see what kind of group names result from their shenanigans. But as always, thank you all so much for watching. You're all fantastic, and I will do my best to keep Io alive. Sure, we're level 1 and I don't have any ranged weapons and have a -1 to my strength and also only 2 spell slots, but it's fine. It'll be fine. Nothing could possibly go wrong, right? Who knows? Not me.